Hi everyone, welcome to Learning Impact. In today's lecture, we will discuss ageism in sociology. Its introduction, definition, example, explanation, and its types. So let's start. Okay, first is the introduction of ageism. Who was the first to use the term ageism? It was the Dr. Robert Butler in 1968 who actually used this term for the first time, and he was referring to the systematic discrimination against the older people when he was using this term. And systematic discrimination, what does it mean by systematic discrimination? Discrimination refers to the unfair treatment against a particular group of people, deny opportunity to them just because of on the basis of either age or gender or any other reason. And systematic, when it discrimination becomes systematic, when it becomes part of our practices, our institution, when our social structure adopt that discrimination, then it will become systematic discrimination. So ageism, according to Dr. Robert Butler, who for the first time used this term and coined this term, was describing it that it is a systematic discrimination against the older people. That those who are older in age, they are actually facing this discrimination from the social structure of our society, and this is called the ageism concept. So ageism actually stems from the stereotypes associated with the different age groups. Stereotype is the overgeneralized statements about a particular category of the society. So when we overgeneralize the older people, that they are less intelligent, they are unattractive, they are mentally incompetent, and when we also overgeneralize the younger people. For example, we overgeneralize them that they are they are lazy, they are technology addict, or they are emotional. And it might be possible that this stereotype exists with as it exists with a different age group, is associated with a different age group. So ageism is a discrimination on the basis of age. It might be on the basis of it might be discrimination against the older people or against the younger people or against even the children. When we associate some kind of stereotypes with the people who are children, that if we actually ignore their point of view just because they are children. So it is also called ageism, that we do some kind of prejudice and discrimination against the people just because of their age. So this was all about the introduction of ageism. Now we will discuss some terms related to ageism, which is necessary to discuss because it is all associated with the ageism and they are slightly different from each other. What is it mean by prejudice? Prejudice is the preconceived notions about a particular category of the society. It is something that pre-exists in our society. It is something that is prejudged by our mind about a particular category. For example, prejudice against women, that women are fragile, they are weak. Also prejudice against older people, that they are mentally incompetent or they are unemployable. So then the prejudice become discrimination. Discrimination is when we in practical we do unfair treatment with the people. This is the discrimination. When we deny opportunity to them just because of their race or their gender or their age. If the discrimination is on the basis of age, then it will be called ageism. If it is on the basis of gender, then it is called gender discrimination. If it is on the basis of race, then it is called racism. If it is on the basis of sex, then it is sexism. So discrimination is in short, discrimination is the unfair treatment against a particular group of people, or it is deny opportunity to them. Then there is also another discrimination which is called the positive discrimination. Positive discrimination is, it actually refers to the the uplifting the underrepresented people of our society by having some allocated seats for them in a particular organization. As in case, for example, in case of Pakistan, there is a special allocated seats in election for women, and also for the special seats for the transgenders also. This is the positive discrimination. So positive discrimination is that when we try to uplift the underrepresented community or underrepresented sub category of our society by by giving them a role, and by considering that they have right skills for that post. So this is the positive discrimination. Then there is another example, which is the negative discrimination. Negative discrimination is that when we treated individual poorly just because of his or her race, ethnicity, gender, or background. So when we deny opportunity to them, then it is called the negative discrimination. And then the other concept, which is called the positive action. Positive action and positive discrimination are slightly different from each other. In positive action, we also try to uplift the underrepresented community of the society. But in case of positive action, we also give equal attention to the skills which individual has. For example, there is a post and there are many applicants who want to apply for them, but we hire individual who is from underrepresented community of our society. But mm, despite knowing that he is less capable for this post as compared to the other applicants who is also applying for this, but we just hire them just because that he or she is from underrepresented category of the society. So it will lead to the social mobility, and it will have them to uplift and have their representation in a society. In this case, it is called the positive discrimination. But in case if we looked at it is not sufficient that he or she is from underrepresented community, he or she must have equal skill, must have the the comparable skill as other applicants have for this post. So if he or she has equal and he or she is equally capable for the post as other applicants are, then in this case it will be called the positive action. So in most societies, the positive discrimination is illegal. The positive action is legal, because in case when we do positive discrimination, it might become negative discrimination for other people as other applicants who are more capable, more competent for a particular skill, but just because that another applicant who is from the underrepresented category of our society, we just hire them, it will actually have them in the representation, it will actually cause negative discrimination against the other people. So mostly in most society, the positive action is preferred by the government. Then the stereotype. Stereotype is the overgeneralized statement about a particular category of society. It's a statement which has been overgeneralized by each and every individual of the category. For example, the stereotype against Muslim community, that Muslims, they are radicals or they are terrorists. Or for example, stereotype regarding women, that women, they are fragile, they are weak. So there might be a possibility that in Muslim community there are Muslims who are who are modern, who are liberal, who are not as extreme conservative as people assume. And in women category, there might be a possibility that there are women who actually who are wrestlers, who are excel in sports as men are. So stereotypes is actually it is the overgeneralized statement which we do in our mind without any evidence. We just overgeneralize it on the whole community. This is the behavior or trait which we expect from each and every individual of the society. So this is called the stereotype. Within the stereotype, as in the discrimination, there is positive and negative discrimination. In stereotype, there is also the positive and negative stereotype. So positive stereotypes is the overgeneralized statement, but it is something that subjectively favorable belief about a social group. So if it is favorable belief, for example, that Asians, they are better in math qualities, and also, for example, that women, they are more communal. So in that case, it will be called as a positive stereotype. And negative stereotype could be, for example, the older people, they are not good in maintaining technology. Then it is the negative stereotype about the older people. Okay, then there is definition of ageism. Ageism refers to a discrimination or prejudice against a person on the ground of age. Now, what does it mean by discrimination? As we discussed, discrimination is unfair treatment, and prejudice is the preconceived notion about a particular category. So, if we have preconceived notion and we do unfair treatment just against a person just because of his or her age, then it will be called as ageism. Now, when we read this definition, first thing which comes into our mind is the discrimination against the older people is called ageism. It is not necessary that on the ground of, as it is on the ground of age, so it will always be against the older people. It might be against the younger people. Some preconceived notions against the younger people will also lead to ageism. For example of ageism include ageism against the older people which include the the preconceived notions against the older people, that they are unattractive, they are unintelligent, they are asexual, they are unemployable, or they are mentally incompetent. The ageism against the younger people is also possible. For example, the preconceived notions that the younger people, they are just childlike, or they are incapable of adult responsibilities, or they are unskilled, or they are untrustworthy. And also, when we refuse to hire people who are over or under a certain age, it is also a type of, is also example of ageism. But that we, despite of looking at the skill, or despite of looking at how much he or she is capable for a particular job, we just refuse to hire them just because of his or her age, is also example of this. Then enacting policies that unfairly privilege one group over another. For example, we do some policies that favor the younger people as compared to the older, or we adopt the policies that favor the older people as compared to younger. So when we do any kind of bias policies that actually favor the people on the basis of their age, is called the ageism. Then asking for someone's age at a job interview when it is not relevant to the work. For example, the work is regarding any particular skill or any particular technology or technology skill. So we ask people age just because that we have preconceived notion that is, as this skill is related to technology, so mostly the younger people will prefer, they will be a preferred candidate for this. It will be termed as ageism. It will be a discrimination, because despite of looking that it might be possibility that the older people, uh, an individual who is older in age, he is more capable for that particular skill. So it means that it is a ageism is simple. It's a discrimination on the basis of age. Despite of looking at age, we have to look at the characteristic, the traits which individual has when we hire people for a particular post or job. And also, if we adopt a certain policy, we have to keep in mind the particular traits. And also see, it means that ageism is any discrimination or prejudice against a person on the ground of age. Okay, so ageism exists in different sectors. For example, it might be in health sector. It exists in a in it exists in personal relationship also. It exists in a workplace also. We will discuss ageism in personal relationship and also in a health sector. In personal relationship, how do ageism exists? It exists when we do generalizations about a specific generation. For example, generalizations about the Z generation is that they are, they are lazy, they are technology addict, and also the ageism exists when we disregard someone's concern or wishes just because of their age. For example, um, if the older people, they do some wishes just, and we disregard them just because that they are older, and it is more it is not parallel to us, as we are of different generation. So it might be that we disregard them just because of their age, is the ageism. Then taking advantage of someone's age for personal gain, or using someone's age as a justification to deceive or control them, for mostly in case of children. We mostly the adult people, they try to control the children as by giving justification they are immature, they don't know anything. So that's why we use this ageism and discrimination in personal relationship in these examples. Then ageism in health sector, when we infantilize in patients. For example, if there are older people who are patients and we talk to them just childlike, just as by using the oversimplified language, because we have assumed that they will not understand the complex language. They need to have communication in the oversimplified way, so they will able to understand. So it is our preconceived notion that is just the oversimplified language which they can understand. And also the other example, for example, the inaccurate perception of aging. So it means that the older studies have found that doctors, they are less likely to refer older people with the societal thoughts for mental health treatment, because their perception is based on the idea that it is logical experience in the older age, that they will they will have the societal thought, because it is something, it is logical that they will have such experience in such age. So it is the inaccurate perception of aging. And also in case of the infantilizing patients, for example, in health sector, it is like we talk to the older adults just like baby talk. We using the oversimplified language that might use for a child, just by assuming that they will understand just the oversimplified language. So it is the ageism is in our health sector also. Okay, then ageism and sociology. When we break down the ageism is in sociology, it actually leads to a different kinds of discrimination and different types of the levels. It is actually the levels of ageism. At first, there are preconceived notions which exist in our mind about a particular individual or group based on their age. And these preconceived notions, for example, assuming that the older people, they are technologically, they are not good, and also, for example, the preconceived notion about the younger people that they lack wisdom. These preconceived notions, when they left unchecked and they grow. Okay, when they left unchecked, then it becomes discrimination. Discrimination that individuals are then treated unfairly or denied opportunities solely because of their age. So the older adults, they may face age discrimination in the workplace, like as being passed over by for promotion or facing barriers to employment. And then the discrimination then leads to the stereotyping. It is a perpetuated stereotypes about the different age group, but it might be positive or negative, as discrimination can be positive or negative. But stereotyping, for example, it leads to marginalization or devaluation of certain age group. For example, the elders may be stereotyped to be forgetful and younger to be lazy. And then the stereotypes leads to the structure ageism. When we make the overgeneralized statements about a particular category, and it then become adopted by our institutions, so then it will be called as a structure ageism. So it is a systematic and the institutionalized discrimination against the center age group people. For example, it can be seen in policies and the practices. For example, the age-based retirement policies that force the older adults out of the workforce prematurely. So this is a structural ageism because it is something that has been enforced by our social institution. And then the structural ageism leads to the compound discrimination because it do intersection. It leads to the intersectionality. It combined with the other kinds of discrimination, like ageism intersect with some other forms of discrimination like sexism, racism, and classism, and then it leads to the compound discrimination. For example, in case of the older woman, she faced compound discrimination. First, one discrimination is on the basis of her age, which is called ageism, and on the basis of gender also, which is the gender discrimination. So in society, individual is facing compound discrimination because of the traits associated with his or her. So these are the steps, these are the levels of ageism from which the individual, from which the society pass through. First, the individual, they first tend to form the preconceived notions, then they then practically apply that preconceived notion and do unfair treatment with the people, and then the unfair treatment, when it left unchecked, it becomes stereotyped or become overgeneralized about the each and every individual of a category, and then it is then adopted by our social structure, which becomes structure ageism, and then it leads to the compound discrimination for each and every individual of our society. Okay, then types of ageism. There are five types of ageism: explicit ageism, implicit ageism, institutional, cultural, and interpersonal ageism. Okay, what is mean by the explicit ageism? Explicit ageism refers to the intentional and the overt discrimination or prejudice against a person on the ground of age. As its name indicates, it is intentional. It means something open discrimination. It's discrimination openly. It's not something hidden. It can be seen through our naked eyes. It's something that can be feel by our senses. So it is the explicit ageism which is overt, which is intentional, which is not something unconscious. So consciously, when we discriminate against the people on the basis of their age, is called the explicit one. For example, the job advertisement, when they specify preferences for the young or the energetic candidates, then in this case, it is the ageism on the basis of age discrimination. This is the explicit one. Then the implicit ageism. Implicit ageism refers to the unconscious biases or stereotypes against a person on a ground of age. It is something unconscious. For example, assuming that older people they need help without asking for their preferences. It might be possibility that older people they don't need help, but we just assume that they are older just because they are older they need help, so we rush to have them. So in this case, it will be called as the implicit ageism because it is something that we have assumed, but it is something that we have biases which is unconscious because we hadn't asked these older people about their preferences. And it might be like automatically associating certain traits with a certain age group people. This is the implicit ageism. Okay, then institutional ageism is actually embedded within a social institution, the policies and the practices which leads to the systematic inequality. For example, the mandatory retirement ages, as we discussed, that the retirement ages policy actually forced the older people to get out of the workforce just without their consent. So it is the institutionalism which actually embedded in our practices, in our social structure. And then the cultural ageism. Cultural ageism, it refers to a societal norms, values, and representation that reinforce the age-based discrimination. So when it becomes part of our culture, then it's called the cultural ageism, and the society norms and values actually reinforce them. Now, for example, what does it mean by cultural ageism? All the cultural events which reflect the particular age group people, it will be called as cultural ageism. For example, the events particularly focusing on youth, like youth events. So in this case, the cultural celebrations or events that predominantly focus on youth and marginalizing or excluding the older participants, it will be called as the cultural ageism. Then the other example is the interpersonal ageism. Interpersonal ageism is the ageism occurs in a social relationship and interactions. So this type of ageism exists in our social interaction, our everyday life, and the relationship where individuals are treated differently just because of their age. For example, excluding the older people from decision making just because we are assuming that they are older, they like they are forgetful, and their decision we actually exclude them from decision making. And also we use such kind of behavior towards the younger individual, assuming that they lack experiences or they lack wisdom solely because of their age. It is called the interpersonal ageism. So we can conclude that the ageism exists in our everyday life, it exists in our institutions, it exists whenever we look in our surrounding. Ageism exists there. But if we it exists in our interpersonal relationship, it exists in our health sector, in our social institutions, in our culture. So it means that ageism and the discrimination is something that has been deep rooted in our society and our social practices. So this was the end of our lecture. Thank you so much for watching. Leave your questions in the comment section below and like, share and subscribe our channel for latest lectures. Thank you.